Welcome to the Rotary Club of Tulsa. I'm Hannibal B. Johnson, Club President, and I'm thrilled to see so many of my fellow Tulsans, fellow citizens here today. We're now just days away from our midterm elections. Let's all remember to exercise our civic duty by voting like our democracy depends on it. It does. Before I turn the program over to our first district Congressional Forum moderator, let's honor a few club traditions and handle a bit of club business. Let's first thank fellow Rotarian and pianist Tom Wolfe for our pre-meeting musical interlude. If you haven't already done so, please take a moment now to silence your cell phones. Thank you. Let's begin our program with a special solo rendition of God Bless America by Rotarian Phil Armstrong, followed by the pledge. After that, past President John Raines will offer our invocation.
God bless America, land that I love, stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above, from the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans wide with foam. God bless America, my home, your home, our home, sweet home, my sweet home. Tom Wolfe. Thank you. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray together. We pray this morning as one heart for your blessings. Blessing on all the precious people in our community, our state, nation, and around the world. We pray with heavy hearts for the tragic loss of life in Pennsylvania. Anytime there is a loss of life of the innocents, it is hard, especially when fueled by anger, hate, oppression, or racism. We pray with optimistic hearts when we see and hear of sacrificial love for others exhibited during times of crisis. We pray for your eyes, ears, and words to be given to us by you to spread your love, hope, and joy for us as a people. We pray for our leaders in this club, community, state, country, and around the world. Infect them with the importance of the great responsibility they have to lead into and foster an environment of collaboration, equality, and justice for all they govern. Simply, we pray. When unsure of a decision, we pray. When doubting ourselves, we pray. When lost, angry, tearful, joyful, we pray. Until finally, through trust in you, our first thought is to pray. Amen.
Thank you, Phil and past President John, and a special thanks to this week's meeting sponsors, Clear Ridge LLC, Matthew Bristow, and Moore Funeral Home, Joe and Lynn Moore. Now for just a few announcements. Rotary Youth Exchange is looking for a host family for a girl from Switzerland, hosted by the Sunrise Club and assisted by Tricia Kirkstra and Duff Weddle. The student attends Bishop Kelly High School, where our inbound student from France also attends. The exchange time is approximately December 1st through March 15th, give or take a week or two, depending on family needs. Please call Tricia or Duff to inquire about this opportunity. This is a great way to involve your family in service above self. For years, we've given Paul Harris Fellow recognition to passionate supporters of the Rotary International Foundation. It's a proud tradition that honors the memory of our founder, past Rotary International President Paul Harris. Anyone who contributes sums of at least $1,000 to Rotary International Foundation's annual fund, Polio Plus, or approved Rotary International Foundation grants is eligible to become a Paul Harris Fellow. Now, generous Rotarians in our club are giving their Rotary International Foundation recognition points to members who are interested in becoming Paul Harris Fellows. This is how it works. You give $500 to the Rotary International Foundation, and these generous Rotarians will give you 500 Rotary International Foundation recognition points, and that will make you a Paul Harris Fellow. So act now. There's a limited number of points available. It's an honor to receive Paul Harris Fellow recognition, but what's special is what we can do as Rotarians all around the world. For more information, contact Tina or Tommy Lynn in the Rotary office. This week's Rotary inspiration is Tom Wolfe, an anonymous Rotarian writes as follows: Tom Wolfe surely is an inspiration to all members of the Rotary Club of Tulsa. His commitment to being present at our weekly meetings and his willingness to share his God-given talent through the gift of music makes him very special. Tom is also the gold standard for kindness. He always wears a smile. Thank you, Tom, for being part of our club, both in service and in blessing. So Tom, on behalf of the Rotary Club of Tulsa, please accept your Rotary International themed Be the Inspiration lapel pin for being our Rotary inspiration. A book recognizing today's program will be presented to our partner in education school, Celia Clinton, and this week's book is entitled When You Grow Up to Vote, How Our Government Works for You, and this is the book right here. At this time, please help me welcome past President and Nominating Committee Chair Rhonda Hayes. Rhonda.
Good afternoon. Thank you, President Johnson. It has been my pleasure to serve as the chairman of the nominating committee. What an amazing club we have here, strong leaders and passionate volunteers. That made our decision for this next leadership team to be very easy and very difficult at the same time. We are so grateful to all of you who are willing to serve. At this time, I would like to introduce the committee. Please stand and be recognized. President Johnson, thank you, standing. President-elect Becky Fields. We have three immediate past presidents, Mike Homan, Mr. Rogers, I think, is today. Jeff Hassel, John Raines. We have three directors at large, Tim Knoll, John DeBar, and Dana Burks. Thank you. Let's give them a round of applause. We need to select a new director at large. The director at large is serve a term of 3 years. The nominating committee has elected 3 candidates. The membership will vote on these candidates Wednesday, December 5th. There will be more information following in the upcoming Monday message, so be watching for that. As I call the names of the candidates, please come up to the front to be recognized. The candidates are Regina Moon, Daniel Gomez, Matthew Bristow. Now you may clap. Aren't they all so good looking? Don't leave, don't not leave. Right there, stay right there. Okay. All right, next I would like to announce the trustee position. They will serve a 5-year term on the foundation board. The committee has elected Jerry Barrientos. Give her a round. Another very important role is the secretary-treasurer. This person will keep us between the straight and narrow. We have elected Tiffany Egdorf. I need a drum roll. And now, it is my honor to announce the president-elect for 2019 and 20. Please welcome Mr. David Wagner. Thank you for your willingness to serve, and back to you, President Johnson. That's it. No picture? Got pictures. We got the pictures. We're good.
Don't sit down, Daniel, because it's time for Sarge, and you're the Sarge.
Well, thank you, President Hannibal. We have a big day today, so I'm going to get right to it as soon as we get the slides up. All right, here we go. First is Brian Crane, $100 fine, 8 years in Rotary. Brian, if you're here, thank you for everything you do. And with today's political theme, Brian will also be on the ballot as an associate judge. So if you have any questions for him, he's here. Come seek him out. Thank you. Dana Burks is paying $50 for Sandra Mullins. She says that Sandra Mullins is a wonderful example of the Rotary heart, service above self. Sandra and her company were featured as a sponsor in the Tulsa People's article about the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Boys Home. It's a great article right there. If you guys get that magazine, take a look at it. Thank you, Dana, for the fine, and thank you, Sandra, for everything you do. This one's pretty cool. Jesse Guardiola and his wife Sarah got to have, if you guys didn't know, the former president of Mexico, Vicente Fox, was in Tulsa for the Tulsa Town Hall, and it was a great presentation, but Jesse and his wife had the privilege to have dinner with the former president, and the discussion was over Tulsa immigration, police relations, NAFTA, and the new USMCA, and border issues affecting Oklahoma's economy. Thank you, Jesse, for representing the city of Tulsa and for everything you do for this club. Thank you. There's only 2 games left that we have tickets for sale. Bedlam still has some, I think it's not this week, but next week, so there's still some time to bid on that. The OSU West Virginia game is still available. We did have one last fine from Tina Miller. This one is a little close to my heart, and it should be to yours too, President Hannibal. This Friday is International Love Your Lawyer Day. So Tina is paying $100 for this. Thank you, Tina. She wants to point out that, yes, she did in fact say love and lawyer in the same sentence. Now, if you want to know how to celebrate this day, all you have to do, it's really easy, is refrain from lawyer bashing and tasteless jokes for a single day. That's all we ask. That's all we ask. I think that's pretty easy.
I agree.
Another way you can express your love for your favorite lawyer is to send a card or a box of chocolates. I support that. But even better, give a donation to the Rotary Club Foundation in honor of your favorite lawyer, and we will happily accept it, unless we hear a bad lawyer joke, in which case, pay double, please. Thank you. We have 1 minute left, so Tina wants us to show our lawyers in action here. Thanks, Tina. And again, I'll take a box of chocolate, but better yet, let's do a donation to the foundation in honor of your favorite lawyer. Thank you.
Thanks, Daniel. I'll take a bottle of wine, by the way. Now it's time to meet our Rotarian of the day. Past President John O'Connor joined the club in 1983. He's a Paul Harris Fellow, a Club Foundation Fellow, and an Allen Edwards Society member. He's a shareholder at Hull Estel. He has more than 30 years of experience. John concentrates his practice in the areas of corporate and business law and litigation. Past President O'Connor has been nominated for a federal judgeship. Now, please help me welcome Past President John O'Connor.
Okay, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Rotary Club of Tulsa 2018 First Congressional District Candidate Forum. There are 6 days left until this very important election. We thank each of you for coming to be with us today and for your willingness to bring your talents and your time to the service of the First District and of our nation. Our goal is to ask questions that will allow you to distinguish yourselves from each other so that we can all be informed voters. We are on a limited time allocation. We want to finish by 1 o'clock. So for that reason, everybody, please hold your applause until the end. At the end, we will show our appreciation to both candidates. The order of presentation was determined by a coin toss earlier, and so before their introductions, I'm going to introduce the two candidates. Kevin Hearn is the Republican nominee for the for the Congress seat. He was born on an Air Force base and understood from a very early age that our nation is the home of the free because of the brave. Through school, Kevin worked a number of different jobs that taught him the extraordinary value of hard work. In his early adulthood, he served in the military and earned engineering and MBA degrees. While moving around during his early adulthood, Kevin worked a variety of jobs, including working in the aerospace industry for Rockwell, writing computer programs to automate tasks for businesses, in real estate, and even hog farming. Kevin often shares his story of one opportunity that forever changed the direction of his life. In 1999, Kevin decided to buy 2 McDonald's restaurants in Muskogee by taking every dime that he had to his name. For months, Kevin put all that he had into making sure those 2 restaurants succeeded, all while coming home to a house with no furniture and a sleeping bag for a bed. By 2012, Kevin's hard work had paid off. As the owner of KTAK Corporation, Kevin leads the operations of an organization that owns 10 McDonald's restaurants. It employs over 400 people in the Tulsa, Oklahoma area. Kevin has served in various regional, divisional, and national leadership positions within the McDonald's system. He recently served 5 years as the chairman of the systems economic team for 3,000 plus franchisees that own 15,000 U.S. restaurants. Kevin has been deeply involved in several other businesses, including community banking, technology, manufacturing, and real estate development. Additionally, he has served as chairman of the Finance Committee of the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority. His greatest love is helping aspiring entrepreneurs create new businesses so they can pursue the American dream. He has also served as a state board member on the Make-A-Wish Foundation of Oklahoma and FFA of Oklahoma. He's currently serving as the finance chair for the Oklahoma Republican Party. Kevin and his wife Tammy have 3 children, and they're members of church at Battle Creek. And now for Tim Gilpin. Tim is the Democratic nominee for this position. He was born and raised in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He's an attorney and a civic volunteer with a passion for fairness, justice, and education. Tim is a worker. He worked his way through college and law school, attending George Washington University and the University of Tulsa College of Law. He has practiced law in Oklahoma since 1986. Over his career, he has worked in both private practice and for the state of Oklahoma. He currently operates his own law practice where he focuses on workers' rights, fair employment, and consumer advocacy. Under an appointment from Governor Brad Henry, as approved by the state Senate, Tim proudly served on the Oklahoma State Board of Education, where he supported education funding and promoted competitive education policy and fought against education cuts. On the board, he stood up against the practices of Janet Barisi. He also served at the state capitol as an assistant attorney general under Robert Henry. Tim is deeply committed to serving our community. He has and does work for a variety of civic boards and commissions, including the Arts and Humanities Council of Tulsa, the Parent-Child Center, the Mayor's Commission on the Concerns of the Disabled, the Tulsa County Bar Association, the Mental Health Association in Tulsa, Street School, and the Tulsa Area United Way. He's a long-term and active member of Trinity Episcopal Church. Mr. Gilpin notes that he is running for Congress because there are serious problems facing America and the 1st District, and he's ready to be a part of the solution. He states, whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, an independent, all Oklahomans deserve better representation at our nation's capital. We need full-time representation that is dedicated to the best interests of the people of Oklahoma. Tim has 2 children, now grown by a prior marriage, and is happily engaged to Sarah Neal. Now, by a toss of the coin, Mr. Gilpin is going to give a 2-minute opening statement for you.
Well, good afternoon, Rotarians. Thank you. I am so proud to be here, first as a guest, then as a member, and now as a guest again. And it is a terrific feeling to be a small part of the 100-plus years of service that this club has given Tulsa and the surrounding area. Thank you so much for having the forum. Thank you for putting it on, and thank you for doing a great job. It is true I have served Oklahoma as an assistant attorney general under Robert Henry, back when my hair was a little bit brown. I also served Oklahoma as a member of the State Board of Education, where I like to say I was for education before it was cool, supporting education policies that are competitive on a global level and against education cuts. I'm proud to say I am a teacher endorsed by both the State Education Association and the National Education Association, and a lot of local teachers. The issues that I put forward and the reasons I'm running are, number one, education, to return federal dollars back to supplement what we're spending in our classrooms. Number two, health care. I support affordable, accessible health care, and I definitely support continuing the pre-existing condition as a part of our coverage, which is on the table in Congress, and also a living wage. And finally, it cannot go without note that we all suffer through the toxic environment in Washington. What is happening there is not helpful to any of us, to our nation, or to the national discourse. I think we solve that problem by electing public servants, not ideologues. We elect people who say, I'm not 100% right, but I sure am willing to discuss it, work on it, and spend time on it. It's not a glamorous position to be a United States congressman, but it is an important position, and I'm dedicated to working on the serious problems across the aisle that our country faces to find real solutions to real problems.
Thank you, Mr. Gilpin. Mr. Hearn.
Thank you. It's great to be here today, and what I understand is probably one of the largest Rotarian clubs in the world. You guys have been around a long time. I've been here several times, and it's really good to see old faces. This morning I started the morning at 6:45 with the Sunrise Rotary. They were all dressed up like Halloween. That was pretty exciting. But no, it's great to be here. It's great to have my wife Tammy here, a person who led me to Christ at 31 years old and forever changed my life. As you heard in my bio, all I've known in my entire life are starting businesses and creating jobs and putting Americans, helping them get on the first rung of the ladder. It's been my mission field with my wife and I working alongside folks in our McDonald's restaurants. And we just had one back in 1997 after working 10 years to save $100,000. And yes, building a hog farm and having that 9 years and literally selling the farm to get our first McDonald's restaurant. It was pretty humbling after coming out of the aerospace industry. But when I got to that first restaurant, and that was in January 17th, 1997, was the last time I ever worked for anyone except for the people that worked for us. And I signed both sides of the paycheck since that time. And when you are the last to get paid, you certainly understand what affects job creators in America. And borrowing Ronald Reagan's narrative that the greatest social program in the world is a job, we have to do more to create more jobs. Right now we have 7 million jobs out there, and we have to figure out how to get our Americans into those jobs. So we have a real opportunity out there. As we work forward and look at the questions you all are going to have today, I look forward to answering those. One of the greatest experiences I've had is, as John mentioned a minute ago, was my time that I spent traveling this country for 13 years representing the 3,500 franchisees in this country. People from all walks of life. McDonald's is recognized annually for the most diverse company in the world. So Democrats, Republicans, Independents, people who don't give two hoots, every skin color, every religious background. They just want to find common ground and find solutions. And I was proud to do that for 8 years as their ombudsman, solving and listening to everything they said and learning, and then going finding solutions.
Thank you both. Okay, this next question, the first question today will be for Mr. Hearn, and it's a 15-second response. And when you hear the question,
Politics, John.
I know it.
You said 10 minutes.
We're not, yeah, it's not 10 minutes. But when you hear the question, I think you'll understand. Okay. Tell us one characteristic that you respect in your opponent.
His tenacity and actually running. I think it's a tough deal running for office these days.
Mr. Gilpin?
I'm going to go with longevity. You've been running for office for a long time.
2 decades, I think.
A long time. And we have to thank your wife, your beautiful wife, Tammy, because she's put up with it.
That's for sure.
Okay, Mr. Gilpin, you'll lead off in responding to this one. What is the proper function of the federal government, and what are you going to do, what are you going to Washington to accomplish for us in your first term?
Sure, and how much time?
This is a 1 minute.
All right, 1 minute. Okay. Well, the federal government, of course, is the basis of guaranteeing our rights as American citizens, as the folks who implement the Constitution and our constitutional rights. But more important, it's also the area we look to not only provide solutions to common problems, but also to fairly serve all of our citizens. So when I look at federal government, I'm going not because I look in the mirror and see a president, which I guess every other congressman does. I don't look in the mirror and see a governor. I look in the mirror and see a pretty good congressman. And that means that I'm fighting for the interest of the 1st District first, foremost, every day, day in and day out. That also means your federal tax dollars that you've paid, it's already out of your pocket, need to come home to work right here. Because right now our representatives are not doing that. But the money doesn't evaporate. That money is going to other states. So job one for me, real solutions to real problems, and bring your tax dollars home again.
Thank you. Mr. Hearn, same question.
Yeah, if you look at when the Constitution was founded, it was founded by the consent of the people. So we, the people, control the government. We need to always remember that. That's when we vote every other year or every other time we have the opportunity to. But when you look at that responsibility, I'm no bones about it. I'm a very limited government, free market guy. That's my entire life. I grew up very, very poor. I don't think the government is about continuously giving handouts. I think the government can be there through our extension of our people to give us a hand up when we need it. But we've extended that way too far, way too far. We have opportunity now with 7 million jobs to put Americans back to work. I look for that opportunity to do that. Remember, when we go to Washington, D.C., we will raise our right hand to swear upon the Constitution of the United States of America, not the Constitution of Oklahoma. That's the responsibility, is to listen to this district, listen to the people in this district, and go represent your interests and points of view when you go to Congress. And there are 434 other interests and points of view that we have to listen to and find common ground, and that's what I'll do.
Thank you. The next question starts with Mr. Hearn. If you are elected and your party is in the majority, who will you support for Speaker of the House and why?
Well, as I just
It's
said...
a half a minute.
Sure. Half a minute, okay. As I've said, the only person I know for certain is running is Jim Jordan, and some don't like that, but the reality is that the Freedom Caucus has expound on the interest of responsibility to the Constitution. Now, the methods to getting there has been a real problem. That's the thing we've got to look at. But right now, the only person we know for certain that is running is Jim Jordan. There's a lot of people mentioned, but so right now it'd have to be the person that I'd support.
Mr. Gilpin?
Sure. There are a lot of interesting, important folks, good workers in the Democratic leadership that need to come up to the position of caucus leader or speaker. I've said before, I have no animosity against Leader Pelosi. I think she's done a good job, but my vote will go to someone new. My vote will not go to the number 1 or number 2 in the caucus or Steny Hoyer. My vote goes to the new leaders coming up in the Democratic caucus, women and men, who I think will be terrific to lead us in a great new direction toward more opportunities and a greater system of government.
Thank you. Mr. Gilpin, you'll go first. This question has a couple of parts, but it's a minute-and-a-half response. What is your plan to solve our illegal immigration situation? What would you do with workers who are already in the United States, though illegally, and those who are to come? That's the first part. Secondly, would you build a wall, and how would you pay for it? And third, what will you do in respect to the caravan of several thousand people that are heading toward the United States right now? And we'll start with you, Mr. Gilpin.
And this is a minute and a half. Okay. All right. Well, we haven't wrestled the issue of immigration since Ronald Reagan was president, and we have to do it. It has to be done because we have concerns. We have real issues alive and well. 3 industries in America are most affected by immigration: service industry, construction, and agriculture. The simple fact is the system we have now does not grant enough work permits to fulfill the needs in those industries. Job 1 is an immigration bill that addresses the number of legal work permits for the folks that those industries need to do the job we expect them to do. Jumping ahead, I do not support the wall. I do not support vilifying people, insults, or disrespecting folks. If we want to solve this solution, if we're dead center on getting something done, then we need to speak to our neighbors to the south. And we need to figure out why there are folks showing up at our border. And we need to address that. Because spending $50 billion plus on a political gimmick, which is the wall, is not what I'm going to do. I'd rather spend that money on roads, bridges, highways. That's the direction we need to get in. Now, the caravan. Folks, these are desperate, poor people who have been vilified, who have been called names. If we're going to address that situation, then we need to be dealing right now with the government of Mexico to come up with what kind of system is going on right down there to address their needs and attempt to get it done before they reach the southern border.
Thank you, Mr. Gilpin. Mr. Hearn.
Yeah, it's a long subject here, or a long answer for a subject. But as a person who employs folks from all parts of the world, it's an issue we got to get after. I've been in E-Verify since 2011 because it is truly a problem. I-9's the current process is something that just simply does not suffice in knowing who's here legally or illegally, and we've got to change that. So I would support that. But the issue regarding, I do agree with Mr. Gilpin on this. You guys can write that down. Maybe the only time we agree is that we do need to get back after immigration. It's not been done since 1986, and what you're seeing is frustration across the entire spectrum. You're seeing frustration with cities and states and sanctuary cities and sanctuary states. You're seeing the lottery issue. You're seeing issues with, the chain migration is going on. We've got to get all these, get after these. In 1986, when the 3.6 million amnesty was done, there was a promise that a wall would be built. In 1993, Bill Clinton said we need to build a wall. 2006, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama voted for a wall as U.S. senators. Now then, we've got President Trump that wants a wall. The reality is that this is an issue that has to be fixed. We're putting out false narratives, false impressions to people south of us that they can come here and they'll figure out how to blend in illegally. I look at everybody in this room. I don't care where you're from, you're Americans because you're here illegally. Everybody deserves that right to come here legally. We legalize 1.1 million immigrants a year, so it's not like it's dead. There are 500,000 people a day that go back and cross our border that work in the United States or work in Mexico and come back and forth. So the border's not closed. We need to do something about that as well, work on securing our border.
Thank you. This next question, we'll start with Mr. Hearn. The U.S. federal government, we the people, are $21 trillion in debt. For budget year 2018-19, the federal government plans to spend $985 billion more than it plans to bring in. What specifically are you going to do about this?
How much time?
I'm sorry, 1.5 minutes.
Okay. It's actually 22 trillion now. While we were talking, it went up another trillion. But but no, seriously, somebody asked me in a meeting, debate I had, or a meeting about 2 weeks ago, what keeps me up at night? It's the national debt. As a business person, unsustainable debt is a catastrophic scenario for somebody that's trying to stay solvent. And the problem we have right now is we haven't done the budget appropriations process correctly since 1996. Now you think about that. We're spending trillions and trillions of dollars annually. Our income annually is about $3.7 trillion from all of our tax dollars, and we don't even do appropriations and budgeting appropriately in our country. We should hold everybody accountable. Whoever goes up there, you should hold accountable. The real issue in all that is, if you look at our budget today, we take in about, let's say $4 trillion. Let's make it round off. Our budget's $4 trillion. We take in about $3 trillion. We borrow $1 trillion. In that trillion we borrow, we're borrowing from China and other places. We're funding our national defense. So we're literally borrowing money from foreign countries to build our military to protect us from the foreign countries. It's the greatest Ponzi scheme in the world. We've got to get after this. We've got to get real cuts. President Trump has asked every one of his department heads, which he is legally obligated to do and can do, to cut 5% out of their budgets next year. The House and the Senate need to do exactly the same thing.
Mr. Gilpin.
Sure. The deficit, the debt. The last few months since Congress passed that tax bill, it's gone up 17%. 17% for the national deficit. Job number one is to repeal that tax bill that Congress passed that benefited the richest of the rich. Job number two is to look at tax reform that's going to be addressed to the working and the working poor and the middle class, the economic engine that makes this nation really roar. If you think that tax bill was working for us, look no further than American Airlines, which got a tremendous benefit from the bill, but is now trying to renegotiate a contract despite that tax bill to release over 1,000 jobs at the Tulsa maintenance facility and move them overseas to maintenance facilities in China, the Philippines, South America. So how do we address it? We address it by going back and repealing that terrible tax bill, which added 17% to the deficit and to the national debt. We look at something that's fair to all Americans, and this is from a Democrat. We have got to reduce the deficit. We have got to reduce the debt. And that means we approach these issues fairly. And trickle-down economics has not worked for us historically. So that's the way we address it, and that's the way we're going to fix it. Because this tax bill, ladies and gentlemen, took 3 years off the life of the Medicare trust fund. It's now 8 years until it's insolvent. 3 years also off the life of Social Security trust fund. Important problems.
Thank you. That leads into the next question, and this is, we're going to do this. This will be a half of a minute because you've already been addressing it, but we'll start with Mr. Gilpin on the passage of the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Would you repeal? Clearly you've said you'd repeal. Or would you cut taxes even more or make the cuts permanent?
I've already said I would repeal this tax bill Congress passed. It was fundamentally unfair and fundamentally is driving up our debt and our deficit and is reducing the lifespan of Social Security and Medicare. In Washington, they're already talking about looking towards Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid to help make up the difference. So that's all of us that they're looking at for that solution. Repeal it, look at a different tax bill that works towards the working poor and the middle class of Americans, the economic engine. That's where we need to get going.
Mr. Hearn.
Yeah, I would not repeal it. If you look at if you believe in global free markets, which I do, we had the largest corporate tax rate in the world. And this put us back into where we're now at like the 25 percentile, lower 25 percentile, where we can compete. Now we're having money coming from China and from other places, direct foreign investment in building manufacturing back in America where the real job growth should be, where wages are much, much better, where we lost and shipped out tens and hundreds of thousands of jobs over a 30-year period. What you're seeing right now, Tax Code 2.0 just got changed, which gives an additional 10% cut to the middle class. So that's awesome. We need to get that done.
Thank you very much. Under the Second Amendment, this will be Mr. Hearn first. Under the Second Amendment, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Is there a connection between this right to own guns and the mass shootings in America? Should the Second Amendment be repealed, left alone, or modified, and if so, how?
How much time?
This is 1 minute.
I don't think it should be repealed. I don't think it should be modified. I've actually spent a lot of time talking with health service people in our town, mental health issues. And the reality is if it were the guns that were doing it and it were taking the guns away, then South Chicago, the Chicago area, would have no murders whatsoever, but it's the highest per capita murder rate in the United States, and it has one of the most stringent gun laws in the United States. The reality is when bad people want to do bad things, they're going to figure out how to do that. The soft targets that occur, which is so sad, you don't ever hear some of these ridiculous shootings that are going on, these tragedies, where they're walking into a police station and shooting up, or where there's somebody with guns. They're going into our schools, into our synagogues, as we know from last week. Tim and I both were at the synagogue, Jewish synagogue last night for that memorial service. We've got to get after some of these things. It's a tragedy when people around the world want to hurt us, and they do. We're still the greatest nation in the world, and people want to come here and hurt us. It's a sad day, and it's a sad day. We need to be in a reflection on who we are and what we're about with our fellow neighbors.
Mr. Gilpin.
Sure, the Second Amendment is here to stay. The United States Supreme Court has said it's an individual right. So that is just the law, and that is the way it is, and I support that. But it also says, the Second Amendment, reasonable regulation. So what's a reasonable regulation? That's where we should be having good faith discussions and debate. Reasonable regulation, what we can do to keep guns, dangerous weaponry out of the hands of felons and those who are mentally unstable. That's what we should be discussing, not repealing a constitutional amendment. So how do we do that? Well, I support a 50-state electronic quick background check and getting rid of the gun show loophole. I do not support high-capacity magazines. But if we can get to a situation to where we're addressing the problem as reasonably as possible with that electronic background check, plus the military into it, then I think we're going to help address the problem that our children in school, our places of worship, and us and all of our civic places have got to be concerned about.
Thank you. Mr. Gilpin, we'll start with you on this. What, if anything, would you do to the Affordable Health Care Act, and why?
Sure, I support the Affordable Health Care Act. I think having 20 million plus more people with health insurance is a really, really good thing. We forget the bad old days when there were all these folks, tens of millions without insurance, showing up at the emergency room. And who paid for that? You and I did. Who pays for the folks who can't get insurance because of a pre-existing condition? You and I do. The rest of us do. So I support the Affordable Health Care Act. What the current administration is doing is taking it apart piece by executive action. What that's doing is making our rates go up and our benefits go down. And that affects all of us, whether you're a part of that or not. So put it back together. Let's make it work. Let's make affordable health insurance accessible to everybody. And then, quite frankly, let's look at the Medicare option. Can we expand it? Can we make it available to more people? Because I know Kevin and I disagree on this. In another forum, we talked about the cost of Medicare option. Well, folks, you and I are paying a pretty penny right now for the health insurance we have right now. And it's not great. So when you consider the cost that's going into the system right now that you and I are paying and all the other Americans, and the hospitals, and the doctors, and the clinics, and all the costs that go into it, all of a sudden what a Medicare option would be is looking a lot more affordable. You know, in the world's wealthiest, strongest nation, healthcare should be a right, not a privilege. And healthy workers are what makes our economy work.
Thank you. Mr. Hearn?
Yes, as somebody that's actually been involved in Obamacare since its inception, I've got 400 plus employees. At that time, I had about 800 when it was first came out. It cost me about $200,000 extra a year, and you had people who didn't want it. We had perfectly great insurance with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois, so it's a misquote to say that all the rates started going up because this president started dismantling it. As somebody who actually paid the premiums on many employees that were taking that, the premiums were going up long before this happened. If you remember it, you can keep your doctor, your health care is going to go down, and all that kind of stuff. That never occurred, never occurred. We're doing this for 30 million people. That was in 2010. Today, there's 27 million people still without health care. So it only affected 3 million people that really took to health care. They were talking about people who would take off health care if you remove the individual mandate. Nobody was asked to be removed. People didn't think it was a value, so they quit paying it. So they took themselves off of health care. The reality is health care is the livelihood between your doctor and yourself as a patient. The Affordable Health Care Act was nothing but a big insurance policy, and the rates have continued to go up. When President Obama left office in 2016, the penalty kicked in the highest it ever was after the election. I know that really doesn't surprise anyone, But people were paying penalties that were very, very exorbitant on their tax returns in 2017 where it was deducted. So the reality is that it was broke. We need to get it back where it's transparent, get the money back into health savings accounts that can be moved. We need to change the way they're done so you can carry the money over and have a lot more flexibility with your money in your health care.
Thank you. This question will be answered first by Mr. Hearn. It's a half a minute. Tulsa is fortunate to have an inland port, rail service, interstate highways, and an airport. How are you going to help Tulsans capitalize on those assets?
Yeah, as a person who served on the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority, much like Mr. Gilpin, I was asked to serve this 4th District. I was confirmed by the Senate back in 2011. I served 4.5 years. I was the Finance Committee Chair, so I saw the actual cost of what it takes to maintain a mile of highway. I also saw what it costs to maintain a highway because of regulation, and it was about half the cost. And I could go on that. But you know, what I say is, and I've said many times over, is that if the federal government built it, the federal government ought to help maintain it.
Thank you. Mr. Gilpin.
Yes, thank you. I got asked a question once on a news program, what can you agree with the Trump administration on? And I hope we can all agree on infrastructure. We can all agree on the need to rebuild, renew our highways, our bridges, our ports, and all the important things that affect commerce, and gives us the ability to have a vibrant economy again. So as your United States representative, you can count on someone working very hard on an infrastructure bill to return those dollars here, because you don't have to go far to tell that we need a lot of road work in Oklahoma.
Thank you. The next question will start with Mr. Gilpin. Oklahoma is among the 10 worst states when it comes to drug deaths, suicides, and the number of people who suffer some mental health condition. What can we do to address mental health and drug addiction?
Sure, thank you. I've served on the Mental Health Policy Committee of the Mental Health Association in Tulsa. It's an issue dear to me that I consider very important. Number one, mental health has to be on the same parity with physical health in any insurance plan and in any health insurance proposal and program. Number two, Oklahoma, the state, has cut its mental health budget dramatically, and we've seen the result in the streets, and we've seen the results in our families. So we have to look at mental health and the opiate addiction problem seriously as a public health crisis. You can look at and point the finger at whoever's at trouble, who did it or didn't do it to us, but now we need our officials to look at it as a crisis to be addressed.
Mr. Hearn.
Yeah, it's like I said earlier, I spent a lot of time with folks. We have a great mental health institute here that's doing a lot of national research work. A person that spent 30 years with the PTSD folks in San Diego that are brought here to specifically study it for Laureate. And it's a tremendous opportunity for us to really have a foothold on what needs to go on there. But the reality is that as we move forward, we're going to have a lot of folks looking at this. It's affecting our Second Amendment. It's affecting job and employment work. And the opioids, what Mark Wayne Mullen did about getting electronic prescriptions was a first step.
Thank you. Question L. Under the 10th Amendment, the states gave certain powers to the federal government, and now many states regret some of those grants. What functions of the federal government would you turn over to the states right now if you could? And we'll start with you, Mr. Hearn.
The Department of Education. You know, when you look at how much money's been spent since it was authorized in 1979 to 1980 when it was funded the first time, you go back just 10 years ago, we spent $60 billion out of the federal government on education. Today, we've spent $80 billion. And the reality is, I don't think many people in this room could tell us one thing that we've gained any ground on with an extra $20 billion, I mean, total of $80 billion spent by the federal government. I think that money should stay in the state. What I look at it is when I want somebody educating my kids, I want that to be the local school board, the parents, tell them where to best spend that money, and I think that's where we need to have the money at.
Thank you. Mr. Gilpin.
The police powers. The police powers, obviously, by Constitution, are laid to rest in the state. We should not have a president sending troops to police areas, except under a national certified emergency. Now, on education, that's so important. Having been on the State Board of Education, I've got a pretty good idea where the dollars come from. And the simple fact is, folks, we live in a global competitive market. China has more honor students than we have students in the United States. So the point of a federal Department of Education is not to dominate the states and their plans. It is to give some guidance, money, programs, grants, directed to help globally competitive programs. Because what were left with was 50 separate state plans for education. And that put us behind the 8 ball as we compete against the rest of the world.
Thank you, Mr. Gilpin. Okay, the next question then would be Mr. Gilpin first. How will you involve the residents of the 1st District in your decision-making process? And this is a half a minute.
That's so important because the simple fact is, as United States representative, not a glamorous job, you have a place in Washington to sleep and put your head down, and then you have your home here in the 1st District. So what we have to have is an effective 1st District office and staff, one that works for constituent service, one that is involved in community projects and with community groups and civic actions, and also a United States representative who comes home and does the same and spends his time here, because I'm not much of a showboat. So that's what you need, is a good district staff.
Mr. Hearn.
I intend to do what our previous congressman does, and I think the entire delegation, sleep in my office during the weeks I'm there and come home on Mondays and Thursdays and Fridays. I plan on, and this is probably shouldn't do this, but I plan on taking the person that controlled Veterans Affairs, the casework for the Congressman Bridenstine. I've been asked by many veterans across this district to rehire that person. I think that's great when you have constituents telling you that you need to hire that person because they do a great job. So again, having a great staff, that's what I've been doing my entire life, is finding great people doing great things at the right time.
Great. Thank you. Question Q. This will be first for Mr. Hearn. How does your experience qualify you to serve us in Congress?
30 seconds, okay.
30 seconds.
You know, I've spent a lifetime listening to people, learning from people, and then leading based on all those experiences. You know, I look across this room and I see people that are people who sign both sides of the paycheck, people who are, I bet many of you started at minimum wage and have climbed the ladder to get where you're at today. And that's what I know. That's what I know about climbing through life, taking advantage of the American opportunity to experience the American dream. You know, I'm here later in life, stepping away from my business for a period of time to hopefully get elected and be your next congressman for the 1st District. And I look forward to the opportunity representing you, the ideas and experiences that I've learned throughout my life.
Thank you, Mr. Gilpin.
Sure. You know, I could sit here and talk about experience. I can talk about being an assistant attorney general, state board of education, having my own law practice with its own payroll, my friends, my civic duties, all the different boards and organizations that I'm so proud to have served. But the simple fact is, I think what really is important is that I share with many of you the frustration with Washington that has gone from bad to worse, the dysfunction, the chaos. You know, I'm not going to Washington to be a part of the circus. So that's so important when we think about who we want to send there in these important times.
Thank you, Mr. Gilpin. Okay, now some short questions, yes or no type answers. We'll start there with Mr. Gilpin. Do you support legalizing medicinal marijuana across the United States?
I think it's a state-by-state question. I did support State Question 788 in Oklahoma. States have to decide that. The states are the great experimental basis that we have in 50 states, 50 actions.
All right, thank you. Mr. Hearn.
No, I think it's a state question. I think it's states' rights.
Would your answer be the same about recreational marijuana?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Social conservatives refer to the issue as right to life. Liberals refer to it as reproductive choice. When does a living human become a person entitled to protection under the United States Constitution? This is Mr. Hearn first.
At conception.
Thank you. Mr. Gilpin.
You know, it's a delicate question with a religious fundamental basis in it. I don't agree at conception. I think it's also a problem we have to address directly through education and health care to avoid the question altogether and come up with solutions to it, as opposed to yelling at one another about it.
All right, thank you both. Now we have 2 minutes each for a closing statement, and we will start by a flip of the coin with Mr. Gilpin.
Well, thank you again so much for having this forum, Rotarians. I appreciate it. It's terrific to be back. It's important to address issues. It's important to see your candidates and make informed decisions. I'm asking for your vote on November 6th. In fact, you can vote the Thursday, Friday, Saturday before November 6th. So you can vote early, too. You know, what this candidacy is about is service. What this candidacy is real solutions to real problems. We can't keep sending the same people to Washington and expect a different result. We cannot send people who have all the answers in their hip pocket. We have to start sending folks who are willing to talk, discuss, and address serious issues and reach across the aisle for solutions. That's what my candidacy is all about. You know, as we look forward, I can think of better times, and it's time to be better again. It's time to have Washington be respectful. It's time for Washington to stop creating problems and start solving problems. Folks, education is pivotal to this period of time, as it always has been, but particularly now. Healthcare has got to be on the tip of everyone's tongue, and it's on the table in D.C. right now. And a living wage, so that the folks who actually make the American economic engine roar are able to once again buy, save, feed their kids, and maybe even go back to school, to college. That's what my candidacy is about. Don't expect someone who says, I've got all the answers and I won't discuss with anybody else. Don't expect someone who's going to go to Washington and talk about disrespect and be mean. This is so important at this period of time, that we look forward for the positive right answers and that we do the best we can looking forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gilpin. Mr. Hearn.
Yes, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today and listen to Tim and I. And you know, I've been in the service business my entire working life. I did some calculations. In the last 20 years of McDonald's, I've had almost 100 million moments of truth with people coming in our restaurants. And the people that work for me are a reflection of my leadership and who I am. You know, I listen to people all the time. As I mentioned, I've listened to, you know, like I said, 100 million people that have come in and offered good stuff, and some have not. Listened to tens of thousands of employees over those 20 years, thousands of business people. I've been running across this district since January of last year, almost 2 years now, back and forth from end to end, sometimes from end to end in the same day. And listening to you, people like yourself in this room, people that have been less fortunate, people that have stories that are much, much like mine, and some that are just, I shake my head saying, how are you successful today and how you did this? And learning from those folks, what it is we need to do and take forward for the great principles of the First District in Oklahoma, so that we can take these things we call our conservative values, ideas of free markets, limited government, get the government out of our way so we can go do things. I've had so many of you all that are in business said, I don't want the government to do anything for me other than get their foot off my throat so I can do the stuff that I need to do, pay my people how I want to pay them, quit sending money to D.C. that gets wasted, fund the military that goes out and protects us from bad actors around the world, protect the sovereignty of this country, help figure out an immigration plan, quit talking about it and using it for a way to raise money. You know, the things go on and on as it relates to what government waste is. I still am a person will always believe that the people nearest to the problem will always make the best decision, not some bureaucrat sitting in some marble building in Washington, D.C. I don't have the answers. That's why I've been listening. And I think as long as you're willing to listen and learn, you can be a great leader. Thank you all so much. Vote November 6th. Thank you.
Now let's join me in thanking our candidates. All right, thank you. Tim and Kevin, I hope that you know that when one of you gets elected, you can call on us to help you in any way that we can. And we know that the other one will be joining the club. Everybody, please make sure you vote. President Hannibal.
Thanks again, Tim. Sure. Have a good day.
Thank you, Past President O'Connor and candidates Gilpin and Hearn. Thank you all for attending, and remember that your vote matters. Let's all commit to letting our voices be heard at the polls. We are now adjourned. Thank you.